Hello everyone, this is EA Spud from Plamo Build Report, and today I'll be reviewing Kotobukiya's Rockman X, also known as Megaman X here in the States. This kit is released in August of 2019, and the price for this kit goes for about 6,000 yen, which is about a range of $60 to around $65. So this kit has been announced back in the Shizuoka Hobby Show back in July, to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the first Megaman X game that we all know back from the Super Nintendo. As you may have all seen from my live stream, this kit looks amazing just by putting it together. There is no painting or no paneling has been applied to this kit. Let's take a closer look. Now here's how the kit looks like after you put it together, and let me just say one thing. I love this design. Megaman X was my very first Mega Man game back in the Super Nintendo, and then afterwards I played all the sequels and the prequels and everything just Mega Man. And Kotobukiya did a very good job putting this together. So this particular silhouette and design is derived from more on the PlayStation series, which is going to be from your X4, X5, and X6 series. The color separation in this kit is perfect. Kotobukiya did a very good job separating out the color, the blue, the light blue, and the purple, and the joints. And one other thing they just went extra. The red color parts you see here are all clear part, and they did a very good job separating this out. As you can see, some of them includes the red sensor on the helmet, the red part in the ear. I'm not sure if you can see the color through the camera. Oh, there you go. Yeah, this red sensor in the ear, that's a very nice touch. And one other thing that they put it is the red sensor, the red part under the feet. And if you look closely, you could kind of see the mechanical detail that's under it, which is very, very cool. Now, this kit looked good and all, but there's only one little complaint that we model builders all see: the seam lines. There are no number of big seam lines that you could really notice right away. One seam line that you can see is the arms. Almost the whole part of the body has a huge seam. Thighs and the leg overall has a big seam, and some other minor seams such as the helmet and then also the shoulders. Now the seam is not noticeable, but if you build plastic models long enough, you can still see it, and personally that's okay with me. But there's one other problem, and I'll explain that to you in the articulation portion. One neat thing that Kotobukiya has also included in this kit are the interchangeable face parts. As you can see, there are a total of 3 face parts that you could change X's expression. One just looking straight at you, one looking through the right while he's shouting, and one on the left when he's grinning. Changing the face part is very simple, so all you gotta do is just pull the chin up and just slide the part out. And as you can see from here, there is a specific joint that will interlock with the back of the face part. And to put it back on, all you gotta do is just slide it in and then just snap it together, and there you go. And one other thing with the clear part, the shouting phase particularly has a mouthpiece that's red, and that itself is a clear part, and that's a very nice touch. X also has 6 different type of hand parts that you could interchange here. And guys, these hand parts are ginormous. It's the biggest I've ever seen. I thought these were like Mickey Mouse hands when I first saw them. This hand part it cannot move, but it has a lot of action pulls into it, and it's all in a ball joint, so you can freely move however you want. Just for a fun comparison, here is the HG Ground Gundam Revive, and as you can see, the hand part is massive. To switch the hand part, you just simply roll the hand part out, and then just match the joints together, and just pose with all your might. The hand part unfortunately has a number of seams that you can see right here, and if you want to just fix this, you could just like put a cement on it and then just sand it out. But as you can see, these hands are very detailed out, so it will be very difficult to even perfect the shape while it's already molded in a very good way. One thing that you have to be careful One thing you have to be very careful when switching the hand is sometimes when you pull it out, the ball joints sometimes get stuck into the hands. And basically this is because since these aren't a ball joint and they're not fixed, they're prone to be separated easily. And most of the common problem that I see is that overall looseness of the part, because these ball joints are kind of forced in, you always make sure you have these parts all just like secure with no openings whatsoever. So if they're loose, they'll fall apart. But as long as you keep it together, you'll keep the ball joints in place. What's a Mega Man if you don't have its weapon? The X Buster. The X Buster itself is a very well designed weapon, and in this case as well, it's very canon to its original series. However, if you look closely, there are some seam line problems that you see right there. These seams could be a potential issue when you're trying to move the parts together, and sometimes because they're not all secured together, they might fall off when you're trying to pose Mega Man. Basically, in order to put the X Buster together, you have to remove this part of the arm and just slide it in. Here's one tip that I wanted to mention to you guys. When you're trying to take the arm off, if you do it like this, then the whole arm will come off, and that'll be very hard to put things together. So what I would do is I would first thing bend the elbow and then take the part out, and then from here it's a lot easier to take the joint off the part. Remember, just to twist it out. If you force it out, then something might break. And then from here, you just fit the joints together. And then put the arm back in. Ta-da! This is the Megaman X that we all know, the arm cannon. And this arm cannon can be set on either side of the arm. So you could do it on the right or on the left. Now let's talk about the overall articulation to this kit, and dear lord, I have a lot to say. The head joint is on a ball joint, so you can move it at any angle you want, and you could even rotate it 360 degrees. The arm can raise up to his ear level, and the shoulder itself is also in a ball joint, so you could freely move it around. As for the shoulder, it only pops up to this much, but be careful when you're posing this part. Sometimes if you overexert it, as you can see right here, it will start falling apart, and that's because of the seam line that you see that I just mentioned earlier. So be careful when you're posing it. The shoulder pad also moves at this angle, so you could freely, with no problem, you could raise at any angle you want. The arm, you could rotate it. The arm you could rotate it around 360 degrees, and the elbow articulation is just good enough that you could flex those arms. The upper body and the hip articulation is what I was very surprised the most. So Mega Man have a 3-point articulation from 1, 2, and 3, and you could stretch it out, or you could also bend it in. And both of these joints are in a ball joint, so you could freely move at any position you wish. The lower torso has a very interesting mechanic where it's more of in like a upside down V shapes, so you can move the legs at so, which means there's more room for posability. You could raise the leg as high as you want and as backward as you can. Also, these are in a ball joint, but despite being that, you could stretch the legs at about this much. The leg bends at around over a 90-degree angle, and you could definitely pose it in that sense. But here's one tip. Because of the seam line that I mentioned you before, if you're not careful, this will flap apart and will be prone to damaging your kit. So when you're trying to moving this kit, simply just push down this weak part and then just start moving your kit around, or else it will fly off. The ankle is also in a ball joint, and you could move it freely and you could bend it back. If you don't like dealing with all these giant seam lines, just simply fix them up, just glue them together and just sand out, and you'll be all good. Last thing I want to talk about is probably one of the coolest things that I've ever seen, and those are the clear effect parts that comes with this kit. You could use these effect parts to make your posability a little something extra, and this one in particular, I really like how it's molded in together. So in this particular one, this is the X Buster shot, and as you can see, that's the green X Buster that Megaman X can shoot out. And it also has these very cool clear part that I don't know how to explain it, but it's kind of that whole centrifugal force that kind of goes through when a laser has been shot out of your arm. Yeah, that kind of stuff. And you can see the base of this part is just awesome. One thing to mention that these are very sharp, so be careful when you're handling these. You will get stabbed. To connect these parts together, one thing that they have done is they integrated like kind of a hollow joint parts on the green Buster, and these eventually will fit into these joints that you see here on the yellow clear parts. So one for the circular FX part and one for the stand itself. Be careful when you do this because the order is very important. So you first put the base first, and then you put the circular part on top. And as you can see, these are pretty hard plastic, but they could be very fragile if you start forcing it through. And also, not to mention, these are very sharp too. So be careful when you're putting this together. And you could pose it in this way, and look at that. This shooting pose is probably the best Mega Man plastic model that I've ever made. The clear part itself looks very awesome. The clear part itself looks very intact, and it's showing the whole big centrifugal blast that will destroy anything. This also comes with a very particular type of joint, and this joint is used for replacing this whole rod itself, and this part itself could be the dash effect, one of other Mega Man X's distinctive feature or the gameplay. To put this out together, all you simply have to do is you carefully open this effect parts like very, very carefully. As I mentioned before, these are very sharp, and although these seem like a hard plastic, these will break if you start putting some force. So just like that, you take the part out, and this is where that particular joint will go. Just take this out, and then you just replace this part here, and then you assemble it together. And there you have the effect part all built together. So what this needs, and that's not included in the kit, is like a clear rod that you use to stand your model together. And basically for X, that particular joint will go at the back of his armor. As you can see, that hole right there. So what it's going to be is you just have to put the rod on top and just attach to him so he doesn't fall apart. Now, unfortunately, I do not have the rod that is needed for this kit, so I'm just holding it right here. But as you can see, this dash effect part looks amazing. It actually looks like that X is dashing through his boots. One also interesting thing that you could do with this part, and since if you just take it apart, this clear part itself can stand on its own. So if you kind of arrange it a little bit, you could see X just charging for his blast, or he's going to go Super Saiyan. So this is going to be used in a very variety of kits like Dragon Ball or any of, like, let's say a G Gundam kit. Very useful. Today we looked at Kotobukiya's Rockman X or Megaman X, and guys, this kit looks very good. It's fantastic. Kotobukiya has done a very good job with the color separation and creating the overall silhouette of X itself. My only gripe from this kit is going to be the seam lines, because the seam lines are massive and they're just all over the part, and it makes it very difficult to pose X just as it is. My only recommendation for those seam line is just to repair them by using a Tamiya cement or any other super glue and just sand it out. So my overall final score for this kit is going to be 9 out of 10. Overall, a very fantastic kit. But with that said, this has been EA Splits from Plamo Build Report, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.